It's a book haul video. A book haul video.
Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jeff, and this is Not Just Book Reviews. And today I'm going to be doing my very first book haul. I took a car today out to New Jersey and went to a cool used bookstore that was in kind of an odd little place where if you pulled up, you might think you were buying machine tools, but instead it was a big warehouse with a lot of awesome books. And I'm going to give the prices on these just because I think it's kind of fun to get good deals on certain books. But so I don't want to name the bookstore. If you want to go and you're in the Jersey, New York area and you feel like you're going to go, you can, message me on the comments or something and I can tell you the name of the bookstore. But so I have, I'm getting a car for the next 3 or 4 days because I have some traveling to do for a vacation. But of course, as a book guy, I got it a day early so I could go out to New Jersey and go to this bookstore. I went to 2 bookstores today, but the second one was kind of a bust. But that's kind of how booktubers roll, so I'm sure no one's surprised out there. But anyway, this is my very first book haul. I don't do a lot of book hauls these days because I tend to cherry pick little books from eBay, and because of the pandemic, who's going to bookstores? Not a lot of them are open. But this was like an old school, people not in good moods behind the counter, but God bless them, man, they were great. Like I tried to make some small talk with the woman as I was ringing up, and she wasn't having it, but she stands by her books, and I respect the hell out of her. So there you go. So let's jump into the haul. Give a shout out to Michael K. Vaughan and just say that I was thinking about you, Michael, as I was there, stuck in your book ban. And I just think Criminali should be hurt. I think he should be hurt for his horrible example of this this terrible restriction. Because I feel like there's the reading of books and there's the buying of books. And they are mutually exclusive. There are times when, when I've culled books, and that horrible thing that book owners do every once in a while where you have to actually let go of some books that you own. I don't even like to say it out loud. It's kind of an evil thing that we have to do once in a while. But when I cull books every once in a while, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember buying this, never read it, don't really need it, right? So I feel like I've come to the place where like the buying of books is its own pleasure. I may never even read what I buy, but there's something about the buying of it that's very pleasurable. Like, oh, I've been wanting this. I want to read it. I may read it. And now I have it to read. And it's very pleasurable. And whether I read it or not, who cares? I'm not going to say I'm going to read 100 books and then, not buy any until I've read 100 books. Why would I do that? Life is short and there's a pandemic on. So end of my rant against Criminali. He's got a great channel, obviously. I'm just taking the piss. But Michael K. Vaughan has fallen under his clutches. I'm trying to rescue him by example. Anyway, to the haul. They had a whole shelf of Louis L'Amour mass market paperbacks right when I walked in. So I'm going to do mass markets first, then I'll do trades, and then I'll finish with hardcovers. Mass markets are my jam. I love them. I want to say I love them, but I've only done like 6 shows and nobody really knows me, so it's fine. But I wasn't sure of them, so I kind of just went by the titles and the Crossfire Trail. Louis L'Amour looks so cool. Really good shape too. $1.50. Okay, $1.50, and this thing's in like perfect condition. It even has the old advertisements inside where you sent away. I always thought like maybe I should try and send away for these things and see if someone would still get the little card, in today's day. But High Lonesome. Louis L'Amour. These covers are so great too. The new Louis L'Amour covers stink. These are awesome. $1.50, beautiful shape. The Iron Marshal. Louis L'Amour, beautiful shape. $1.50. The Iron Marshal. How am I not going to read this book? Showdown at Yellow Butte, right? Got to be action packed. Looks great. $1.50. All right, so that's my Louis L'Amour haul. Then I found a John Gardner James Bond novel, 4 special services, $1.50. I'm in the middle of reading all the Ian Flemings now, and at some point I would like to jump in and see what Gardner does with the character. So $1.50 for a decent copy. little bit of stainage in the back, but it's totally readable. Robin Hobb, Assassin's Apprentice. I read this years ago and thought it was one of the best fantasy books done. She's amazing. But I stalled out in the second book, which I think is there's Royal Assassin's Apprentice. There's Assassin's Quest and Royal Assassin. I forget which one comes next, but she's great. And so I want to reread this and then go plow through at least the first trilogy. Now she's got a lot more in that universe, the Elderlings universe, I think it is. So I kind of want to do more Robin Hobb reading. And you know, for $1.50, it's in amazing shape, and it's a Michael Whalen cover, which is beautiful. So, Little Assassin's Apprentice. $2 for a really good copy of Game of Thrones. Now, I haven't read any George R.R. Martin. As a fantasy fan, I'm kind of aghast that he would just bail on his core audience and not finish the series and just like co-write Game of Thrones, and now he's co-writing the prequel, and then he puts out these Man-Kazin Wars and Wild Card. Like, he's writing everything but the rest, but what made him, and these things made him. So I'm like, kind of like, I'm never going to read your books, dude. But I'm also a budding writer in my own. I write in my spare time. Most of it's not very good. I haven't figured out how to put things together that I like yet. But I kind of have to take his measure. He's one of the big guys. So I kind of have to read him to get my arms around, like, what is it about him? What does he do that's great? There's got to be something special in here that he does, and I need to figure out what it is. So I will read some George, even though if I saw him on the street, I think I'd punch him in the face and then scream, "Finish the series, you bum." Stephen Baxter, The Time Ships. This purports to be a sequel to H.G. Wells' The Time Machine. And it's a pretty thick book. Oh, it came with a bookmark. Look at that. Borders. Huh. They're no more. Maybe it'll be worth something. How many pages? 520-page sequel by Stephen Baxter. I haven't ever read a Stephen Baxter book. He's supposedly one of the giants in the hard sci-fi field. I've never read it. So I figured I'll start with this maybe because I know the story and see how he does with it. So kind of psyched to check out The Time Ships, Stephen Baxter. I found an amazing copy of Elizabeth Hand, Waking the Moon. This is a great book. She is a great writer, and I never see her reviewed on Booktube. And this is a terrific book. This is probably one of the first dark academia books. I think this might even been before The Secret History. She's a beautiful writer, way under appreciated, I think, and under talked about. And so I read this years ago, and I remember loving it. And I kind of had a yen to get back into it and check it out. And she's written a lot of other things, so I need to get more into her. Elizabeth Hand, Waking the Moon, highly recommend. Dark academia, a little bit of fantasy elements, but just really good writing as well. Lee Child, Jack Reacher, worth dying. I'm on a quest to collect every Jack Reacher in mass market paperback. I'm a huge Reacher fan. I've read every Reacher book, even the one that Lee Child's brother wrote, which was not very good. I'm trepidatious about the Amazon series, the Tom Cruise movies. The first one was like an okay 90s thriller. The second one was bad, but Tom Cruise is not Jack Reacher. Jack Reacher is actually a lot like Conan, which not people who read Reacher don't really read Conan, and people who read Conan usually don't read Reacher. So I may do a little show comparing them because they're very similar, which is why I think it's going to be hard to get Reacher right. And it's hard to get Conan right. But anyway, Lee Child's amazing. If you want to learn how to write a popular thriller, this is the guy. Like, he's unbelievably good at it. So I'm a big fan. Two more to go. The Canterbury Tales, Geoffrey Chaucer. This is a signet Bantam classic, and it's written in modern English. Every time I picked up a Canterbury Tales, it's written in the English of Chaucer's day, and it seems to be unreadable. But this has been translated into modern English, and hey, it's a mass market, and it's Chaucer. I gotta go for it. And the last mass market I found was Raymond E. Feist, Magician Master. So Feist's first two books were, I think they were his first two books. I think it was called Magician, but the publisher broke it up into two mass markets: Magician Apprentice, Magician Master. And I read it back in my 20s, and I remember really liking them, thinking he was good. And I read the next one, which I think was The Darkness at Sethanon or Silverthorn. He's written like a gazillion books in that Rift War trilogy, Rift War world now. But I want both of them. I figured I'll get this one, and then I'll just grab the first one on eBay, a good copy, and then I'll have them both in mass market. So now we're on to trade paperbacks, and I found four trade paperbacks of trade paperbacks that I love, which are the Barnes & Noble Classics. They do beautiful versions of trade paperbacks. The covers, the typeface inside, I mean, just very readable copies. I love that line. So I found four of them. Kim, Rudyard Kipling, which is reportedly his best book, and I would really like to find out what the deal is with Kipling, because I've only read some short stories, and I couldn't quite get a read on him. I paid $2 for this. Don't tell anybody. Then Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I always forget it's the long title, not just Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This is a really good book. I read this a long time ago. I'd like to reread it. Stevenson's hit or miss with me. I like this. I'm not so much for Treasure Island. Maybe I was too old for Treasure Island, but I wasn't a huge fan. But this is a really good book, and it was only $2. I love used bookstores. Ivanhoe, Sir Walter Scott. A good readable copy. Love it. What did it cost? $3 for this. Beautiful shape. Ivanhoe's terrific. This is like a page turner that you won't believe. It's really good. I've tried to get into other Walter Scott books, and they're very tough to get past, but this one, you're right in the story, and it's a barn burner. So I'm psyched I'll reread this at some point. I want to have a nice readable copy. So got Ivanhoe. Beowulf. I love Beowulf. I think Beowulf gets hacked on a lot on Booktube, but it's a beautiful story. And actually, when you read Beowulf, you kind of get a sense of Tolkien's sense of awe and wonder that's in The Lord of the Rings. A lot of it comes from here. It's an interesting thing. So I wanted to get, there's a more recent translation by I think Seamus Heaney, the famous poet, but it comes in one of those translations where it's the Old English and then the English, and that's like, I don't read Old English, so I just wanted a regular. But anyway, I saw a Barnes & Noble copy. I had to score it, so I'll definitely be rereading this soon, and it cost me $3. Germinal by Zola. This has been on my TBR for like 7 years. It's supposed to be about the miners in France and the miners' strike and the conditions there, and it's a very inspirational novel, and it's supposed to be this amazing book. And it's been on my TBR for like most of my life, I'd say. But found a good copy of it. I figured I'm really into Booktube now, and I'm into reading much more. I'm finally going to take down some Germinal. Next up, Passage to India, E.M. Forster. I'm dying to read E.M. Forster because I feel like I'm going to love him. I do love English novelists. There's a certain crisp sense of sentences that they have that, whether or not I like the book, and I read some John le Carré recently, and I was middling on him, but you're just like, oh man, this is the English language as it should be written. It's beautiful. So this is supposed to be an amazing book about India, and Forster is obviously a giant, so looking forward to checking this out. This cost me $2, man. Next up, Jack Kerouac, On the Road, a Penguin book. I guess this is the 20th Century Classics Penguin. Again, it's been on my TBR for most of my life. I've got to read On the Road at some point just to have it in my hat. Very good readable copy. $3. The Loss of the Whale Ship Essex, which was the kind of inspiration for Moby Dick. I've been dying to read it. I think Ron Howard just made a movie about it called Heart of the Sea, which I did not see because I really don't like Ron Howard movies that much, except for Parenthood and Apollo 13. But this was in amazing shape. It's perfect. It's a nice old school penguin classic with the black spine. What's better than that? $3. And then the last one is kind of a C.S. Forester. It's not any kind of special brand. It's just, I don't even know who publishes this. Little Brown and Company. Anyway, this is another classic along with Patrick O'Brien's Aubrey and Maturin series, right? The Hornblower series is a big deal. So I got to give it a shot, see what it's like. So I saw a nice trade paperback, $2. How do you go wrong? All right, we're down to 4 left, the hardcovers. Not too many hardcovers because even in used bookstores, they tend to be a little pricey, but first one, A Dictionary of Symbols by J.E. Curlott. As a writer trying to write fiction, I'm really interested in symbolism and what certain things mean, visual things mean, subtext and metaphor, because I'd like to use it in my work. And so I'm really curious as to having this as a reference work to just plow through and, maybe setting something or the way the building looks or weather or flowers or anything. There are metaphorical possibilities in all those lots of things. And when you read great books, you see it where they use all kinds of symbolism to enhance the theme of the book. So I want to learn how to do it if I can. So I'll check out this hardcover Dictionary of Symbols, $6. The Golden Bough, James Frazier. This is something that's been on my mind for a long time. It's a collection of mythological stories, purports to be an anthropology book, but I think the anthropology science has since outstripped it. I'm not exactly sure, but I read some of it and it's written in this beautiful prose. So I wouldn't read it maybe for anthropological reasons, but I would read it for the evocation of the stories and the myths and the comparisons. He talks about what he thinks about each myth and what it compares to. Anyway, it's a beautiful hardcover copy. I mean, really gorgeous. $5. Take the end papers off. You can see it's like got a beautiful spine. And I usually take the this thing off when I put it on my shelf because I just love the way this looks. So, Golden Bough, Tenders the Night, F. Scott Fitzgerald. I do love The Great Gatsby, and Fitzgerald is one of my favorite writers, but there's something about this book that sticks with me way more than Gatsby does. And I think because he wrote it about Zelda, I think he was present when Zelda started to kind of lose her mind, and the horrible tragedy that was for him to witness. And he uses a lot of that in here as something happens. But it's a very sad book. Incredibly sad and powerful, all that, and what happens to Dick Diver, hint at the last name, as he goes through this book and things that happen to him. So yeah, really, I love it. And I got a nice hardcover. This is a really beautiful copy. $5. The last hardcover, Gary Giddens, Visions in Jazz. Giddens has been a jazz critic for as long as I can remember. This is kind of the history of jazz of the 20th century. And I was a jazz musician. I was actually a rock and jazz musician in my 20s and 30s. So I love jazz. I love classical. I love all kinds of music. And I kind of want a good reference book and a nice overall history of jazz in my collection. And I'm dying to read this. If you're curious about my drumming, I was a drummer for a lot of years. I played jazz. I played rock. I have a link in my About section with my band's recording. I was in a band called A Career in Plastics. And I was the drummer, and it was kind of math rock instrumental music, and it's free. If you click on the link, you'll hear like 7 or 8 tracks, and that's me on the drums, if you're curious. So that was a cool steal for $6. It's like this beautiful, perfect condition, like 600 plus pages. How do you go wrong? So that's it for my very first Booktube book haul. What fun to do book hauls, right? And what a great excuse to go buy books to do them. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.